So, welcome back to Impactful Teamwork. I'm Julia Felton, and I'm going to be your guide for the next 20 minutes while we delve into the topic of high performing teams, but particularly a topic that is really relevant right now. There's been quite a few articles written on this particular topic in the last month or so, which has really prompted me to dive into it today. And the subject that I really want to talk about is the value of soft skills in the marketplace. And let's be really clear, I really hate the term soft skills because I don't think there's anything soft about these key skills of things like communication, building trust, innovation. These are skills that are absolutely required in the workplace. And I think in a workplace now that is being, dare I say, invaded by AI, they are skills that are needed more than ever. These are the skills that help us build connection and human to human relationships in the workplace. And these are the skills that we are going to need to future-proof our business. But before I delve into that, I found it really interesting because I was like, why are things like, as I said, communication, empathy, compassion, why are these types of skills referred to as soft skills? And it comes back to a lot of things in leadership, which is down to the army. They have a lot to take responsibility for. Because in the army, the term soft skills actually started being used in about the 1960s. And it was to differentiate work from what they called hard skills. And the hard skills were the types of skills in the army that involved working with weapons and machinery. So you can understand why they were called hard skills because you're working with something really tangible. And therefore, everything else became referred to as a soft skill. So effectively, a soft skill was a skill that didn't require the use of machinery. But of course, I think that's a term that in today's environment is pretty much out of date. And as I said, I think the term soft skills is probably quite controversial because to my mind, it really undervalues and undermines the key importance of these skills around, as I said, leadership, building relationships, compassion, empathy, effective communication. All of these skills that are required in the workplace. So there can be the danger that when we start using the word soft skills, that leaders can not pay as much credence to these very important skills as perhaps they should. So maybe they would be better called things like professional skills, or I really like this idea, leadership superpowers. I always talk about teamwork being a competitive superpower in the workplace. So maybe your soft skills are your leadership superpower. So that's just a thought. But I think it's quite interesting to put this into context as to how and why some of this terminology came about and how the use of language actually can, what's the word I want to use, can actually diminish something that's so powerful. Why do these leadership superpowers, these soft skills, why are they so important right now? And I've alluded to this a little bit earlier on. We live in a dynamic environment where adaptability and innovation and resilience, they're no longer optional, right, everyone? They are survival skills. I think we can probably all agree that if we aren't able to adapt and change and pivot, then our business won't survive. And the World Economic Forum actually lists 16 top skills for the 21st century. And 10 of those 16 are these soft skills, things like creativity, collaboration, and emotional intelligence. They also cite in there things like critical thinking, curiosity, and social and cultural awareness. So the World Economic Forum recognizing that actually these behaviors are actually perhaps more important than technical capability in the job. And furthermore, a report by Deloitte Access Economics predicted that by 2030, soft skill intensive occupations will account for 2/3 of jobs. And the same report also notes that the number of soft skills intensive jobs is expected to grow at 2.5 times the rate of other jobs in other occupations. There's always a downside to this, and this is the kicker. The global soft skills gap is projected to cost economies billions each year. And in the UK, £29 billion annually. So this is why this importance of soft skills is so important. And as I said, I think we can all agree that AI is now becoming proliferant within the workplace. I actually think this is a great thing. I know there's a number of people out there that are concerned about the advent of AI and its impact on jobs. But actually, I think it's a blessing in disguise, because what AI is going to be able to do is take away the rather boring, laborious, time-consuming jobs that we've had to do in the past, a lot of these process type jobs, and make it much quicker for us to work. So, for example, you can ask AI to build you Excel spreadsheets, put all of your data in there. I was just reading something this morning, actually, about somebody who loaded all of their profit and loss statements into AI, for example, both their personal and their business, and asked it to make recommendations on where it could save costs and improve what was going on and create a savings plan and things like that. So there's a lot of things that AI can do that will be quite laborious sometimes for us to do, that it can do very quickly. So what does that mean? It means that actually within the workplace, our team members are more valuable than ever before, because what we need them to be able to do is interact with the AI and have this critical thinking in order to work with the AI more effectively. But also, with AI doing all of these things, it means that we have more time to build relationships and build connection within the workplace. And of course, we need great social skills, which are soft skills, in order to be able to do that. Because we've got an environment now which is very high tech. And to some extent, we have become and are losing that ability to connect with people. So we've got high tech, but low connection. And actually, what we can do and what makes team members more and more valuable is they need to bring that connection into the workplace, that building relationships, that critical thinking about AI's done a piece of work for us. Does that make sense? That's what we need people's soft skills for today in the workplace. So I'd like to suggest that if you're just prioritizing building the hard skills of your team members, you might be actually putting your business at risk. Because I think these soft skills are the foundation of agility. And let's be honest, everybody, none of us know what roles will exist in 10 years' time. In fact, it's even estimated that 85% of jobs in 2030 don't exist yet. Just think about that. 85% of jobs in 2030, which is only 5 years away, don't exist yet. So that means your organization's biggest competitive advantage isn't going to be the technical skills, it's going to be the agility of your team members. And this agility is fueled by communication and adaptability and problem solving and creativity. And it's these skills which enable our team members to pivot and innovate and thrive when faced with turbulent times. And so, as a leader, we have a real responsibility to foster a culture that values and cultivates these soft skills so that our businesses can adapt to the changing landscape. And we need to encourage continuous improvement of our team members so that we can continue to have a nimble and responsive approach to what is going on in the workplace. And in fact, a study has shown that improving soft skills in the workplace can actually boost revenue by up to $90,000 and increase productivity by 12%. But not only that, not only does it increase the profitability and the productivity of our organizations, it also has a massive impact on employee retention. Because team members feel more valued, they feel that they're making more of a contribution to the organization, so they're more likely to stay. And indeed, there's a number of bits of research that show that investing in helping your team members develop their soft skills really improves employee engagement rates within the workplace. So maybe something to consider is, how can you audit your team's agility? How can you make sure your team members have the right emotional intelligence to handle change? How can we encourage team members to collaborate seamlessly rather than working in silos? Or be honest, are you indeed running on outdated, rigid skill sets within the workplace? Because we now work in an environment that is very global and very diverse. And today, every business is global. Even if you as an individual business don't have offices across the world, you may have clients across the world, and definitely you probably have some supply chain partners in different areas of the world. We really need to have the soft skills to be able to communicate effectively with colleagues around the world. We need to understand intercultural competence. We need to have this empathy and open-mindedness so that we can bridge the gap between different cultures and build trust and fairness across a diverse workplace. It's really interesting when I think about all the horse herds that I have observed and worked with around the world. What's really true in a horse herd is that no herd survives if any team member is excluded, because each member of the herd has a role and a rhythm and a responsibility. And it's actually the same in business. Without inclusive communications, you weaken the herd and you leave actually the business open to opportunities for threats from competitors or from maybe other technological advantages that are happening in the workplace. So you might want to consider how you can build some cultural awareness into your leadership training and help your team members understand a little bit about different cultures and how to give feedback or make decisions. That can be really important. I think the other thing we can all agree is that certainly since the pandemic, many team members are now working on a much more flexible schedule. And hybrid work is becoming the norm. So this means that we need self-leadership, resilience, and emotional intelligence in team members so that they're able to manage themselves autonomously and stay motivated and collaborate through a screen with their team members. In fact, it's estimated that by 2025, 70% of the workforce will work remotely at least 5 days per month. So therefore, without strong soft skills, flexible working collapses into disengagement and burnout. And I know I have seen this, that when I'm working and I'm now doing more and more client delivery online, it's so important that we can have good soft skills in order to be able to connect with colleagues, with customers, with my students, people that I'm delivering training to. And against this background is why I often talk about, and I've spoken about this quite a few times in different podcasts, about this need for building conscious connection with people over Zoom. It can be very easy when we're working with colleagues in a remote environment to just be very transactional in our relationships, to just hop on a Zoom call or a Teams call and talk about business without even really spending time to really find out a bit more about your colleagues and how they are and what's going on for them. And this was always the advantage when we were working in the workplace that I must admit I never appreciated at the time. And isn't that often the case? We've got something that happens and we don't appreciate how important it is until it's taken away. And it's that whole concept of what I call the water cooler talk. It was the way that I built relationships with people when I was grabbing a cup of coffee, or we'd walk out and we'd go and buy our sandwich lunch together. I'm thinking back to my corporate time in London and how valuable that was, and actually how much I learned about what was happening in other areas of the business and what was going on through that very informal communication. And there is the danger that working remotely, that we forget to engage in that informal communication to really find out what is going on underneath the surface of the business. And that information can be incredibly valuable to us. I actually see soft skills as a driver of digital transformation because we talk endlessly, don't we, about AI, automation, and technology. But here's the truth. Technology doesn't transform business, people do. And PwC estimates that 30% of jobs could be automated by mid 2030. But the thing is, you can't automate things like empathy. You can't replace creativity or curiosity with a machine. And you certainly can't automate trust. So digital transformation only succeeds when teams have resilience, collaboration, and influencing skills to navigate the disruption. And the horse herds remind us of this too. Because when a horse herd is under pressure, it doesn't survive by each horse bolting in its own direction. They survive by reading the energy and adapting quickly, and importantly, moving in unison. We notice that when trouble is on the horizon for a horse herd, it actually comes together. It forms a collective or an even stronger collective. But what I see in the workplace all the time is when organizations come under pressure, people scatter. Horses don't scatter, they convene together. And that's a big difference. And that really helps the herd get through the tough times. So you might want to consider within your organization about, as we start upskilling people with AI skills, how can we complement that with developing soft skills alongside them? Because I think for every skill that we give people to help them work more effectively with AI, if we were also helping people develop a soft skill at the same time, there would be an exponential change in performance throughout the organization. The other really important thing for us to remember, of course, is that soft skills also drive the customer experience. Because customer loyalty is built on relationships and not on algorithms. And yes, we've seen that tech can personalize offers. And you can have, and we've all experienced, haven't we, AI bots that come in as your customer service and try and help you. But we always know that at some point you need some human interaction. Bots and customer service bots are great if you just need to know how to do something. But typically, when you've got a problem that's way more complicated, you need that human interaction. You need somebody with great listening skills who's empathetic and that is responsive and can actually go and get the help and support you need to solve the problem that you have. So some research has been showing that improving soft skills in the workplace can boost revenue by up to $90,000 per employee. And as I said, increase productivity by 12%. And one of the reasons that happens is because this better communication and empathy translate directly into better customer service and stronger brand loyalty. And again, I know from my own experience, when I'm able to get on the phone and speak to somebody, I have a much better experience. And typically, whatever problem that I've got can get resolved quite quickly. So we really need to think about with our team members, and particularly those in the front line, there is an imperative that they have amazing listening skills and the ability to resolve conflict. Because actually, what we need to think about is that every complaint is an opportunity for us to deepen trust and create a raving fan. We know that things don't always go to plan, right, in business. Unfortunately, but that's just the reality of life. We all make errors. But we can use that as an opportunity if we respond to it in the right way to really change the relationship with a customer. And if we can resolve it in a manner that works well and is a win-win for both parties, then that's incredible because that customer will become a fan for life. And I know that there was a long time when I worked with just one mobile phone company. Actually, it was up until about two years ago. I had the same mobile phone company ever since I'd had my first mobile phone, which was probably back in about 1993. So I have been a customer of this company for, probably nearly 30 years. But I got to a point where they weren't responding to my customer complaints. I wasn't getting the service I required. And actually, I felt they were taking advantage of me. I felt that I'd been a customer with them for so long, they didn't think I would leave. And so when I couldn't get to a resolution on a particular problem, I did. I finally made the decision to go with a different provider. Yeah, it's actually saved me a whole load of money in the process. It was because I wasn't having a great customer experience, despite being an incredibly loyal customer for 30 years, that I took my business elsewhere. AI can't replace the customer experience because AI can't replicate the soft skills, as I said, this listening, this empathy, this ability to problem solve that we can get from a real human. In my work with the horses, that many of you know that I do, I think one thing I've really come to realize is that these soft skills are actually survival skills. Because when I look at horses, they don't follow the loudest or the strongest. They follow the most trustworthy, consistent, and emotionally intelligent leader. They're energy barometers and they show up showing us that leadership isn't about control, but it's about connection. So that's why in the Unbridled Teamship Roadmap, I focus on three levers that mirror these soft skills. And the first of that is game-changing trust. Because without game-changing trust, our teams fragment. We also focused on impactful contribution, that every voice matters and everyone can make a contribution to the business. And lastly, we look at unbridled adaptability, which is the ability to reinvent again and again. And these aren't abstract ideas, they're lived skills that every team can cultivate. And they're exactly the skills that the horses demand from us. Well, on my unbridled success retreats, when people come and learn leadership skills from the horses. So, some closing final thoughts about this. Hard skills, technical skills might get you through the door, but it's the soft skills that actually keep you in the room. They're the differentiator between teams that merely survive and those that thrive with unstoppable momentum. So if you're serious about future-proofing your business, you want to start with the soft skills audit. Look at where this trust, empathy, adaptability, and curiosity are strong and where they're missing. Because as I said, in today's volatile world, these aren't soft at all. They're your organization's hardest currency. So if you'd like to find out a bit more about this, I'd really encourage you to take our Turbocharge Your Team quiz, which you can find at businesshorsepower.com/quiz. And there you are going to learn about what is the game-changing trust in your organization? How is everyone making an impactful contribution? And what's the level of unbridled adaptability, this ability to reinvent within your organization? So a few things for you to think about as we go into this week is value the soft skills of your team member. They are going to be a competitive advantage for you, not just now, but in the future, and even more so in the future. And if you'd like my help, please do reach out to me or book a turbocharge your team audit, and let's unpack where your soft skills are strongest within the organization and where you might need some more help and support. So I'd just like you to remember that your business is a living system. And just like my herd of horses, it thrives when every team member contributes, trusts, and adapts together. So really hope you've enjoyed this episode of Impactful Teamwork. And until next time, bye-bye.